Hello and welcome to the Import-Export Hub channel weekly newsreel. I am your not so boring host Bogdan, at least I hope so. And on this channel, for those of you watching my videos for the first time, I cover import-export related topics. So if you're interested in these kind of subjects, don't hesitate to hit the like and the subscribe buttons in order to please YouTube's algorithm and hopefully reach other import-export enthusiasts out there on YouTube. So first things first, let's start with the quiz question of the week. So prepare yourselves. Who was the largest exporter of dried prunes in the world in 2020 in terms of value? And the options here are France, Uzbekistan, or the United States. And the correct answer is the United States with more than $122.5 million worth of exports. So if you guess the correct answer, by all means, treat yourselves with a couple of dried prunes. And leaving behind these wannabe stand-up comedian jokes, let's move on to the news. And let's start with this week FREIGHTOS index, which currently is at $8,516, which is quite a large increase from last week index. And I am afraid that as we approach the Christmas time, I won't be surprised to see the index reach the 10K mark. I really hope I'm totally wrong with this prediction, but then again, time will tell us if I'm right or wrong. And moving on to the big movers for this week, we have China to North America West Coast lane with 12% increase, while China to the Mediterranean lane decreased with 1%. For the cross Suez lanes, we have China to North Europe at $13,208, while the lane to the Mediterranean is at $11,778. And with this being said, let's move on to my first news for this newsreel. And I will start with a news concerning small and medium exporters and why not importers, as the China International Import-Export Commodity Bazaar opened in Shanghai. And I won't cover the entire story, you'll have the link in the description down below, but I really find this event a great opportunity to advertise your products, especially country-specific products related to food and drinks. So basically what I'm trying to say is that if you're in this kind of business, I highly recommend you to gather some information about, I don't know, rents and advertising space for the next event. Now, moving on to my next news, and I don't know if you remember China's anti-dumping tariffs on Australian wine. Well, this news is related to this particular issue, as Australian wine exporters are trying to use Hong Kong as a backdoor entry to Chinese mainland. But unfortunately, this strategy isn't working, as the French wines are very competitive in terms of price and quality, as a wine trader from Guangdong tells us in the article. Now, don't imagine that this strategy is meant at tricking the Chinese authorities, not at all. The wine traders use Hong Kong as a distribution hub in bonded warehouses, maybe, until the wine is sold on mainland China or other regional markets. Also, in this article, we have some statistics related to China's wine imports from both France and Australia, and it seems that from January to May this year, so 2021, Australia exported $45 million worth of wine towards China, while in the same period, France exported more than $220 million. So not great news for the Australian wine exporters, as this backdoor entering strategy with Hong Kong isn't helping them very much if the anti-dumping tariffs are kept in place by the Chinese authorities. And honestly, I've said it before, at the moment, there is no other country in the world able to intake the loss of the Australian wine exporters because of China's anti-dumping tariffs. And we see countries like France and I don't know, Italy, Argentina, Portugal, or Spain benefiting because of this issue. Now, moving on to a topic related to the impact of the pandemic on the supply chains. And I have an article written by Jan Hoffman, which is the head of trade logistics at UNCTAD, in which he briefly describes the factors straining maritime supply from support measures in the United States and Europe that grew both household income and expenditure to unexpected swift rebound in containerized trade by an early and rapid recovery in China. The article also covers some issues related to how small and vulnerable economies are already paying more for shipping, or how these huge freight rates are passed on to the consumer. But I don't want to explore these facts. You'll find again the link in the description down below. But instead, I'll focus on the part in which the issue of competition in maritime transport is somehow touched. And I don't know for you guys, but it's mind-blowing how the ocean carriers approach towards their clients change 180 degrees from 2019 tenders, when back then I remember I was working for the second largest tire manufacturer in the world, and we saw the big carriers trying to court and please us as much as they can. And now when they see their profits through the roof, their bargaining power exponentially increased, and which is totally understandable, up to the point in which they don't see you as a partner anymore, but as a client from which they are trying to squeeze every last penny. At least that's the feedback I get from my former colleagues. And remember, we're talking about the second biggest tire manufacturer in the world. And I don't want to know the troubles the small and medium importers or exporters are having right now. Anyways, I'm deviating from the subject regarding the article emphasis on competition in maritime transport, and here I hope that the policymakers from all over the world will somehow develop some strategies and leverages in order to supervise and monitor freight rates and market behavior for the ocean carriers. Sorry, but for me, arguments like China's fast economic rebound, the lack of equipment, or the lack of vessels, or I don't know, huge imports driven by the United States are not standing until you show me some figures and not just some vague concepts. Anyways, I won't go further with this. The important thing is that this issue is addressed by the national authorities, and now it remains to be seen how it will develop after. But sadly, my guess is that the lobbying groups will do their jobs once again, and we won't see some big changes in the years to come. Or maybe, I don't know, we will see some new developments from 2024 onwards, once the European Union will readdress the Ocean Carrier Alliance's status. And maybe until then, we will have the results from the Federal Maritime Investigation, I don't know, hopefully by the end of this year. Now, moving on to my next news, which is about New Zealand exports towards China, which reached a new high in June 2021, as China continues to receive the largest share of New Zealand exports. And in terms of export drivers, we have logs and wood, who reach a new high, up 23% from June 2020. We have also beef exports from New Zealand, who were also a major driver, reaching a new high of $286 million again in June 2021, with volumes up 8.5%. There were other major drivers like milk powder, butter, cheese, but also kiwi fruit, whose exports towards China rose 43% compared with June 2020. Now, let's hope that New Zealand policymakers and export associations won't disturb the Chinese authorities anytime soon, as this could be catastrophic for New Zealand economy. And remember, too much export concentration can have tremendous consequences if some disruptions were to occur, as in the famous case with the Chinese anti-dumping tariffs on Australian wines. And speaking of wood and logs, my last news concerns this kind of exports, this time from Russia, as we have some interesting statistics, and I will cover a couple of them which I think are worth mentioning, especially for those working in this kind of business. So basically, during January to May 2021 period, logs exports increased by almost 25% in terms of value compared with the same period of 2020. Plywood exports grew by almost 32%, again considering the exported values. Wood pulp exports were almost 27% higher, and sadly, newsprint exports were almost 18% lower, which is understandable as the demand for printed newspapers is gradually getting lower. So these were the numbers, and it seems that 2021 is a really good year to be in the timber business, as both the volumes and values increased compared with 2020. And with this being said, guys, my time is up. This was the newsreel for week 30. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment in the section down below, and of course hitting the like and the subscribe buttons will be highly appreciated. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.